You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Wow. Chase me, huh? Hi. Welcome to All Things.
So we're actually going to be talking about that a little later, and we're going to be doing an interview with him. Hi, I'm Mike Balzer, and behind me, I've got my Maker Gear M2 running. Oh, better watch that plate there. Hang on. But one of the themes for this particular episode is using the 3D Benchy in order to calibrate your printer. So I've decided to print one out, and I have to say that my Maker Gear M2 was in really good shape, and I have some models to prove it. I didn't bring my calipers, but I also have it to compare against my Form 1, which I also printed out as well. So, hello, Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris Kopak. We're here, All Things 3D. Today's week in review. We're April 17th, 2015. A lot going on, as usual. Isn't that right, Mike?
Always.
Always. And we've got some pretty interesting news items to talk about before we get into some tips on calibrating your printer. Hopefully some guest crashers joining us in just a little bit here.
Well, sadly, nobody's going to crash us today. Everybody's too busy or it's too late. So I'm going to get right into my first item here. This, if you're wondering what 3D Benchy is, it's kind of been in the news. A group out of Sweden called CT Creative Tools has designed a product, if you want to call it that, and put it out for free. That's a unique, fun way to, what would you call it?
Benchmark.
Benchmark, thank you. And the company name, as mentioned, is CT Creative Tools, and we were hoping to have as our guest crasher Paolo from Sweden, but it's like, I guess he didn't realize it's going to be like midnight, so he couldn't make it, but we do plan to interview him at a later date. Let me jump to my screen here. Hang on. There we go. So this is their website, and it looks like a lot of these newer websites, they not only support 3D printing, but they also support 3D visualization. They obviously are a vendor for Autodesk, MakerBot tools. In fact, if you go through here, they pretty much cover the whole mill. So they're, what would you call it, a vendor or a retail center. They do software. And obviously with the big boys, so they're in Sweden. So I guess they've decided, I don't know if it was for the purpose of getting attention to themselves, or they just felt that somebody needed to create a fun tool. And that was 3D Benchy, and I'll just go ahead and click to that. And this is 3D Benchy. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a little tugboat, and I think it's modeled after one, and I think they've got some pictures in here, but I'll get to the pictures in a moment. But essentially, you download it from a variety of sources. So if you're a Thingiverse fan, you can go out to Thingiverse. If you are a, there's the picture right down there. So there's where it was modeled. But you can go out to a lot of different sites. Even Sketchfab has it, as well as a 3D model that you can rotate. And then you can submit your print back to them, and then they will, use it to compare to others. And they even say, even if you even create a bad print, if you notice down there in the bottom left-hand corner, that's even important, because that identifies what could be possibly wrong, and if you submit it, people can give you suggestions. So I think it's a really cool, fun way. And if you go further, let's see if we go up here. They have a PDF, but let's go to the measure and calibrate, see if it's all here. Yeah, it goes through and it tells you exactly what you're printing, its specifications. And then let me see where else. I didn't want to bring up the PDF, but let me go back. Here, let's see if the analyzed tells. But yeah, we're just getting specifications again. Well, actually, it tells you in these. Well, let's see if this will help. I'll bring up the PDF. It'll load here in a shortly. But essentially, they designed this thing in such a way that it provides information for you as a printer on how to determine what areas are weak on your printer. And here they go. Like, is your hull large and smooth? So this would determine overhanging, curved surfaces. These are obviously a challenge. And then symmetry, left and right. How well does it match on each side? And then how well is the STL file triangulated, which creates smooth surfaces? Is the conversion to file, or the STL file, an issue? Let's see what else. Top surfaces, creating flat surfaces after you build a few layers. How even are they? Obviously, they have some lettering off to the side. How well does it print this? They have circular items, how well, as I mentioned, concentric cylinders. And then you have some interior overhangs. How well does it print that? And then low slope surfaces. And then on the bottom, how shallow are the letters that you print, which are important because this determines how well your bed is set up. So all these little things that they built into this that you can go back and identify. And I have to say that mine actually turned out pretty good. So I'm very happy. And let me jump to my camera. Where's my camera? Here we go. And this will give you an idea of the one that I built. My coffee.
There's a little steamboat. A little benchy.
Yeah, so a little benchy. So there you can see the lettering on the bottom. So I actually, it did have a little bit of, what would you call it? I would say overhang, but there's still a little bit inside the, the portholes and that of a little stringing, which happens when you're overhang without support. Kind of you have a little bit of threading. So there was a little bit of it, but not much at all. And I don't know if you can look inside there, but it's got a little steering wheel or whatever they call that. So yeah, I was very pleased. As I said before, my Maker Gear M2 is really, really well tuned now. So I'm very pleased. And then I don't know if you can see it from here, but there's the embossing on the or what do you want to call that? The cut in. So overall, I'm very pleased with it, how it came out. I put a little spray coat on it because I did have to sand it down a little bit. There was one side that had a little roughness to it. So I'll have to figure out what that was. But for overall, I mean, the circles are very concentric. The cylinder, I don't know if you can see it here. Let me bring it back down. There actually is a ridge in there. So yeah, it actually, in my opinion, turned out
pretty good. Awesome.
And then in comparison, I also did in clear on my Form 1, the same model. And one thing that I've noticed, even though you can have some very smooth surfaces, it just seems, if I compare the two, the edges just don't seem as refined, which I think is kind of interesting. And because the Form 1 has very limited control over exposure time and things like that, I'm just wondering, what the issue is. I also noticed in this print here that some of my surfaces, especially in the housing, is a little rough, and I've noticed that on a lot of my prints. So somebody out there who's got a Form 1 can kind of chime in the show notes when I put it up on YouTube. Please do. I'm going to go ahead and write to the Form Labs and say, hey, why is this happening? I just thought maybe it was one or two prints, but it seems to be pretty consistent. There's some roughness. And I don't know if it's always in one area, but yeah, so there's my two little boats, and I was very pleased with the output. Now, I was going to bring some calipers down here, but I forgot them, so I don't know how accurate they are. I do know that I extrude a little bit more than I should, so my set, my dimensions are a little bit off, and I will see how much. So I will go back and calibrate it, or I'm sorry, calibrate it, but measure those points that they identify here to make sure, how accurate I am. So it's a very cool little model, very fun to print. And then if you do print it, go ahead and set it back up to the 3D Benchy website so that they can, make them available for everybody to see. So let me jump back to it. Let's see if there's, let's go to the gallery. And obviously you can go out to Instagram. There's pictures on Instagram. And let's see, I've got, where's the little video at? Here we go. I'll play the little video. So as mentioned, I'm going to have Paulo on probably the week after, so it'll be really exciting to hear from him on why he designed this and what other things are coming in the future. He has more plans for this little tugboat. So, back to next item. Chris, you're up.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll get right into the news. Thanks so much. Really can't wait to try one of these little benchies out, steamboats. Looks pretty fun. So nanny state alert for us in California. We had a news item, woke up this morning too, and we'll get right into that. California Assembly Bill AB-37 aims for posting 3D printing rules and warnings in libraries. And this is aimed at their libraries. They're talking, this bill apparently is going to require libraries in the state of California to post copyright notices. We'll go to the actual verbiage and provide citations to the applicable state and federal laws that may impose civil liability or criminal penalties for misuse of a 3D printer, including laws regarding copyright infringement and trademark and patent protection. States Section 1A of the AB 37 bill proposed by Assemblymember Nora Campos representing San Jose. So there's the nanny state at work again. They got to go in our libraries and make sure that we're not printing anything that we're not supposed to, overseeing every aspect of our life.
Have you gone to a library lately?
Yeah, not in a little while. I typically will stop by, but with the decentralization of information and having the internet right at our fingertips and Amazon Prime having any book within either at instant delivery or audible.com with instant delivery of pretty much any book. Libraries are more and more less relevant.
Well, the reason I mention that is, yes, maybe some libraries have 3D printers, but nothing in San Luis Obispo County. The reason I know that is I was going to donate a 3D printer, and they wouldn't take it because they had nobody to support it. So just a little FYI. They may have this bill, but I don't know how many county libraries have 3D printers to enact this.
Libraries are more and more, the more the nanny state gets involved.
Shaking.
The more they infiltrate into these institutions at the local level, the more we see, the more reach we see from the state. Obviously, the less we are able to explore the mind. It's the same as schools. It's a sad story of the same sad story as schools, unfortunately. So, but just thought it was relevant. Thought I'd bring it up. So that was this morning, and it was apparently came out of San Jose. So I say fight it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you doing that. I think I put that in the show notes, hopefully that you would cover it because it just came in when I finished up last night. So Yep, it's very interesting. You know, sometimes legislation is good, sometimes it's just there for politicians to push something else out. So let's move on to the next item. You know, those French again. This guy has created, if you joined us in the beginning, we actually did the little trailer for this, but the story behind this is, and we're going to have this guy on in an interview. Notice you have a little doggy back there as well. I've got mine, you've got yours. This is going to be the Pooch Show. Okay. All right, on that. So let me go to my screen here. So this is Chase Me. And why it's in the news is this guy has done a stop animated film. You know, like I said, we already did the trailer, where he has taken, and here's the making of, which we'll show, which I think is pretty neat. But essentially, here's his storyboard, but he created some animation, 4 months of CG animation in order to create the object. But then he's printed these, and guess what kind of printer he used, Chris?
A Form 1.
A Form 1. And who has a Form 1?
Mike Balzer has a Form 1.
Balzer has a Form 1. So I know how slow the Form 1 is. And this guy created 2,500 parts with his Form 1. So
wow.
Either that's a testament to the durability of the Form 1 or the guy's nuts. Maybe both. Don't know. But can you imagine creating 25 parts? Look, these are the things this guy has built. So he's created all these sets, 10 months of nonstop printing, 6,000 hours. This is, you know, it's going to be fun to have this guy on. And look at the organization.
My God.
Meticulous.
You know,
I just see these, meticulous. I mean, obviously he was driven. And then he painted a lot of these parts. So, and then if you remember in the trailer, 2 years of my work, or my life. So here you go. Look at this.
Wow.
Wow. Well, I'm impressed. I don't know if you've done a little bit of stop motion. I have. And
I guess it's all right, Mike. It's pretty cool. I guess it's okay. No, this is incredible. This is somebody with a lot of talent and a lot of drive.
Talent. Yes.
You know, and it take that's the thing is you can have a lot of talent, but if you don't have the drive to put it all together, then it can oftentimes go to waste. But somebody like this, you know, I mean, not only did he have the drive to go and do this, but he's presented it in a beautiful format. You can check him out, chasemefilm.com. Go check it out. It is incredible.
And here's the guy, Gilles Alexandre Deschon. So like I said, he's going to be on probably 3 weeks from now in our interview.
So how is he monetizing this?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Awesome. We'll have him on the show, and chasemefilm.com. Pretty cool. Great. Thanks, Mike.
On to your next item.
Awesome. So on to me, Adobe. This is coming in via 3dprint.com as well. Adobe's in the news. Adobe files a patent for smooth 3D printing process. This covers FFF and FDM category printers. And so it says if you've ever wrapped your textbooks in contact paper or attempted to place a screen cover on your smartphone, you're probably painfully familiar with the frustrating bubbles that are created when air becomes trapped under the plastics. Sometimes it would seem nearly impossible to apply those clear sheets correctly to end up with an evenly finished surface. So apparently Adobe has figured out a solution to that, and they outline it with their patent down here. We'll get into it, and this document describes techniques and apparatuses for smooth 3D printing using multi-stage filaments. These techniques are capable of creating smoother surfaces than many current techniques. In some cases, the techniques determine a portion of a surface of a 3D object that includes or will include a printing artifact or is otherwise not smooth, and then applies multi-stage filaments to provide a smoothing surface over that portion. And it goes through 4 main claims in their patent, kind of shows a smoothing surface process in plate 1506 and 1514. You can scroll down. You can find this document at 3dprint.com. Search for Adobe Patent Smooth FDM. And,
so do I understand correctly that if you need multiple print nozzles to do this?
So as are most patents, there is still some ambiguity built into this, the patent itself. So yeah, in the beginning they did, they do talk about how it's a multi-stage filament. So what that means exactly, somewhat vague.
Okay. So there is a specific, but yet they show.
They're saying that this one says the ability to adjust the angle of application when applying the smoothing surface or changing the viscosity of the filament during the 3D printing process by altering the temperature of the filament mid-print. So they're talking about maybe
okay. So
changing
it's maybe
the temperature as it's coming out, so they can actually change the viscosity. So, and then the third part, the third article is computer readable media having stored instructions that are able to determine based on the desired 3D printed object if and when there will be an artifact, and be able to project another stage of production that will ease the creation of a smoothing layer. And then the fourth goes on to a controller on a filament providing element of the printing device that would determine using sensor data that a printed object has an undesired surface flaw, and would then provide a smoothing surface over that flaw. So they're talking about maybe having some sort of sensor that can actually pick up where there's any rough patch, and then it can go back and smooth it out using the process. So and the article does add that in October that Photoshop unveiled 3D printing features inside their software, which we had some people on from Adobe that were graciously came onto our program and kind of told us all about it. And now they are just going one step further and trying to innovate. So pretty cool.
Pretty neat.
Adobe files a patent. You can check out, you can read even more at 3dprint.com, Adobe Patent Smooth FDM.
Great. Thank you, Chris. All right, so on to my next item. So we're now into the different sections, and this is 3D scanner darkening or 3D scanning processes. A couple of updates. ITSE 3D has come out with a new update that allows you to communicate more properly or better with the internet. If you're familiar with ITSE's 3D, it uses the structure sensor, but instead of doing all the processing on the tablet or currently just the tablet, it sends it up into a cloud for processing. So I guess they've had issues with the system hanging or being disrupted with a slow connection. So I guess they've improved that. That really hasn't been the case for me, but I'm glad to see that for maybe some other people that if this were a problem, they've rectified it. If you're not familiar with ITSE 3D, ITSE 3D is a little application that's written for the structure sensor that allows you to get extremely high resolution textures. The mesh itself isn't very high resolution. Hopefully that will change in the future, but it does provide really, really nice images. And if you go out to my website or out to Sketchfab, you can see some results. If you put some effort into it, it's very, very, one, affordable because it's free unless you're a professional, but two, the sensor itself is very affordable and you can get some extremely good results, and we've had them on several times. Yeah, the other thing that's in the news is another company, 3D Systems. They have a product called Sense that we've talked about before. It's kind of a handheld scanner, works on the same technology as the structure sensor. In fact, they've licensed the structure sensor, the iSense. So this kind of works in the family, but they've added a new application upgrade that provides better performance as well as color. So if you have that and looking at getting some better tools, they're actually providing them as well. But you have to have a login ID, which means you have to own the product. Okay, so that's the scanner section. VR, I was hoping Brian would add something to it, but he did not, but that's fine. I still have a few items to talk about in this area. Let me find my cursor. Okay.
Lots of stuff happening in the VR world. It seems like that's just blowing up even in the past couple weeks. I think a lot of people are really anticipating the next Oculus update, which seems like it's right around the corner.
Well, More than likely. Well, let's talk about some other things that we've had an interview. Actually, I did the interview. I don't know if you had an opportunity to listen to it. We had Real Space 3D come on. It's one thing in a VR environment to have visuals, but if you don't have matching audio, which means when you turn your head, move around, the audio should change as well. But instead of just repositioning it, it actually provides, if you go back to the interview that we did with the co-founder and chair of this particular company, they actually do all the modifications that our ear does mathematically, so you get the real sense that you've moved in space and the sound has tracked it. So the important thing for today is that they've had an upgrade to use Unity 5. That is the new Unity engine. We've covered that in the past, and Brian has had some show notes on that. So we've got an upgrade both for the Windows, Mac, and Android, as well as iOS. So if you're looking at providing unique audio, I think the plugin is free, so you can use it. And then there are some demos down here in the bottom that you can load up if you want to sample it for yourself if you've got an Oculus Rift. So those are out there. And like I said, we do have an interview I did about 3 months ago. And just go ahead and look it up on YouTube. Or now that I have all the podcast episodes up, you can look there as well. So both on audio and video. So a good little group. And well, that takes us through, what else do I have in VR? I want to show you guys something. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is what I'm going to call the Neodi VR.
What?
So essentially, I'm taking my Neodi mount case and let's see, there we go, and applying it to a product that I found on Thingiverse, and I've been talking with the designer of it. He's from Arizona VR, and he has some skills as a goldsmith making jewelry. So he's taken that skill and he's applied it to this. And if you notice, I've refined it a little bit, but he has the interocular knobs built into it. But what I've done, if you go back to the original, is I have put in some modifications to the front plate so that you slide in your Neodi mount case. Slides in through the bottom bracket, and then it clips on the top, and there you go. And then the Neodi mount, if you're familiar, has magnetics to hold the sensor. They're almost ready to show a version that will work with the iPhone. So I will be able to actually maybe next week give a demonstration of how this works. But I call it environment awareness. You can walk around in your environment and it will translate to the VR world. So it will know where your walls are. It'll know where furniture is. Kind of like the HoloLens. And the fact is, I don't know if you see off to the side, there's a wide angle. So you can actually implement AR, not augmented reality, as well as VR. So you can just add items to your world.
So could a hacker hack the unit and make walls appear where they're not and kind of guide you into a wood chipper? Like, or like off a cliff or something.
Sounds like
it's like, yeah, it's
plot in a VR movie or something.
Just a thought there,
So this is what I've been working on this week.
Very cool, Mike. I like the look at the Neodi mount on the front of a VR headset. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I'm going to be calling this Neodi VR, and I'm probably going to create some prototypes with your help, Chris, and then I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter for this, for the whole Neodi mount center. All right, so let's move on to the next item. Get back to my screen. Cancel that. Where are we at? 3D in medicine. Where is that one at? Here we go. This is a kind of a fun item here. And, another heartwarming. We've talked about e-NABLE. We've had John on from e-NABLE. I was at South by Southwest, and one of the panelists, the scientist from Autodesk, has developed an e-NABLE hand that we're both familiar with. I can't think of the name now, but he's the person behind it. So we have some familiarity, but to see these little stories over and over again, and I'm going to play this, and I don't think there'll be any sound, but so do you hear that, Chris, or is there no sound on your end?
No sound on this
That's
end,
good. I
but
don't want to, but I'm hearing my ear. But essentially, the text here identifies that we have a 10-year-old girl who has, an incomplete hand, and she's wanted to play the viola. So what they have done is created through e-NABLE a little attachment that allows her to hold the what do we call the what do we call that?
bow.
The bar there. The
The
bow.
bow.
Thank you. Jeez. So if you can see, there you go. So this is the cool thing about 3D printing and 3D fabrication and 3D design, is that you can develop something that conforms to an individual and create, extra components. And this, here we have a child who with a malformed hand, but imagine us be able to do this, add another appendage. I think we've talked about this and laughed about it, but the opportunity we have now to just scan our own bodies and add to it is really becoming an important issue. And again, hats off to e-NABLE being involved in this. And if you're not familiar with e-NABLE, it is a free form nonprofit group where you have people from around the world who are volunteering their 3D printer and design experience in order to print out these for people who either can't afford or literally can't get these prosthetics. And even though they claim they're not medical prosthetics, they do serve a huge function for people who can't afford them. Chris, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I just think that the whole e-NABLE project, I actually had another hand go out early this week. One of my customers' son, we've talked about him on the show before, and he came and picked up his hand, and I'm hoping in the next few weeks that he'll have a completed, fitted hand. I think they're probably going to work on it all weekend, and he'll have a functional hand hopefully by next week. So pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I just think it's a great project. I think just to add on this, I saw another little news item. Can I transition into it if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah, another one that came up that I got an email about from Robo3D, the guys over at Robo3D, which are based out of California, put together this little video here, and it's about a girl. A little girl, this father here, he's adopted some children and has a blind daughter. And so he was able to 3D print teaching materials, geography, so he can teach her geography, like, print out the state of California and teach her the shape of the state of California, which hasn't really been able to, you've never been able to do before, especially with the help of expensive teaching aids that are very specialized, so he can come up with his own teaching aids and teach his blind daughter what California looks like, what Nevada looks like, what the United States looks like. He goes in, he also can teach her about simple algebra or simple math, because he can take a pie and split it into a quarter or a sixth. He explains that in a quarter, to somebody that doesn't know what that is, a sixth seems like it's bigger than a quarter if you can't see, because a six is higher than a four. So, a six, but when you break it into pieces that you can feel, you break a pie into pieces that you can feel, you can then understand geometry, or you can understand mathematics even better. So he's helping his blind daughter. What a great guy. You can go on you can go on to Robo3D's channel and check it out. It's another little heartwarming story. Here he is with his whole family at the end. It's got a beautiful family. Here they are. So 3D in medicine, using 3D printers to improve the life of everybody around us. I think it's a wonderful time we're living in.
No, yeah, I agree with you totally. And obviously, I have my own story that has been presented. In fact, I haven't received, because I asked for just the, what do you want to call it, the virtual copy, but I guess in print, the episode that was on make.com is also in their print edition for this month.
Yep.
I don't know if, so.
I saw it.
Really?
Oh yeah, I
haven't,
have you
Jim.
in my. I have you. I have you on.
How funny.
You're in Make Magazine with celebrity
Well,
friend Mike.
yeah. Well, the other thing is that I've been invited to Maker Faire to talk on a panel, and as well as do another interview with them with Siobhan. So if you have some time, maybe we can make it together up there and do a little bit of all things 3D at the Maker Faire in San Mateo. Okay, well, let's move on to products of the week. And, you know, these are either products we own or products that, you know, that we've seen in the news. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce to one that caught my eye. And one of the reasons that I've talked about them in the past is that they create a product. Let's see where it's at. Well, here, downloads, Voxelizer. And the reason that I've talked about Voxelizer in the past is that it will also allow you to print your DICOM. So if you wanted to 3D print your own CT or MRI, there's still, well, at least when I work with it, there were some bugs, and I was able to give them some feedback. But the fact that it's built into their slicer. But the thing that caught my eye, if you can see it in the background, is this personal fabricator. And what's fun about this personal fabricator is that you can change out the heads with different things. So like they have a dual extruder, you know, they've got a baking tool, so it extrudes chocolate
or whatever. Wow.
Whatever. And then they have a Dremel tool extension, so you can have your own little CNC. So here's the chocolate printing version down here in the bottom.
Stirring up some chocolate. Oh, it's making me hungry.
Yeah, so I'll skip to it, but so there we are, loading it up. So then you change out one, and then you put one in. So, you know, I'm not familiar with this type of gantry, but I've seen that some of our other guests have used something similar, and they're fairly precise. Yeah, I think they're probably a little more work, but the fact is that this has so much flexibility seems pretty neat. All right, we'll keep moving. So he's obviously adjusting it.
It's printing chocolate.
Chocolate. Oh, well. So he's going to print a heart. So he's printing a heart there. So if you notice, it extrudes fairly slowly. So things probably had to be adjusted. Oh, there, that's kind of neat.
Wow.
Well, pretty neat. But the cool thing is that that's just one of the many extensions. If you go out to their shop, to the personal fabricator, you know, this company, I can't remember, I think they're from Poland. Yeah, sorry if that's not the correct company. I think we can, here we go, we can go out there and see. But let's get through this. Here's your pricing for it. You know, the chocolate version is, geez, what is it? Whatever their currency is. So I don't know what the conversion is. But if I remember correctly, they're fairly competitive, maybe a little pricey, but I found that a lot of the European printers are pricey. But I don't think they're any more pricier than anything else out there. But the fact is that you can get it with different things, I think is pretty cool. And it also does laser cutting. So it's got a laser, so you can do laser cutting. So I don't know. I think it's kind of neat. So I'll have to look into it further. The company, where are they located? Come on.
They're somewhere. They're on Earth.
Somewhere. Poland. So I was correct. So they are from Poland. So yay. I did remember something. So it's a really neat looking product. They do have their own slicer that can do some medical stuff as well. But I think that's really neat. All right, I'll move into the next product. Hey, remember those people in Made in Space?
Oh, yeah.
If you wanted to use the same filament that they used up in space, you can now order it. And you can get the Made in Space filament or the Astro ABS. Notice it's a little more pricey, but and then you can also get the Astro ABS canister for only $4,895 if you want something that looks exactly like what they sent up to.
And you can get inspected Astro ABS, and that's $300.
Ah, yeah, and
so that's got to be inspected by hand by this
right.
guy here in a lab coat. It's official
and he probably has his signature on it. Let's see if they have a little story behind it. Well, yeah, here we go. So it talks about it that it meets space quality insurance. So if you're going to be going up to space and you need some quality stuff, I mean, if you could afford to go up to space, what's $300 to you? But I think it's kind of neat. So if you wanted to get involved with some, well, precise, calibrated in this case, or even their standard stuff, still has pretty tight tolerances. So I think
and still cheaper than Stratasys.
That's a good point.
Almost cheaper than
funny. All right, so you've got an item from Harbor Freight. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, this is my product of the week. We'll check this puppy out. So, and I can get into this with when we get into our calibration tips here, but this 1-inch travel machinist dial indicator for $15 can measure down. It'll deliver precise readings to 1 inch in increments of 1/10,000th of an inch. So it helps you. This is what I use to help me level my bed if I'm having issues or if I'm having trouble with my prints. I can I'll show you here. Have a little one of these. Thanks to somebody that put it up on Thingiverse. This just snaps right onto the Taz head, and then can tell me. I just can get zeroed in on the dial here within
one of those.
Within 1/1000th of an inch. I can get every point that I want. I can run a calibration routine either through Simplify 3D or Matter Control. Lately, I've been using a little bit of Simplify 3D because it's a pretty nifty piece of software, and they've got a nice little calibration routine. They don't actually have an auto bed leveling routine, but they have a bed leveling wizard that goes through. And so what you can do is you can put this on there, and you just need to basically find 0. So you want to get this to be the same at all your corners, and then you can adjust on the Taz, you can adjust the max limit switch or to be basically however high you want. So you can still use a piece of paper, or you could calibrate with this and a piece of paper, whatever you choose to do. But I just find that this is really helpful. Little $15 gizmo. Just helps you get your bed leveling even more dialed in and down to like a number. It helps you quantify it. It's not as qualitative as a piece of notebook paper, so it's a little bit more precise.
Yeah, I've heard some pluses and minuses. The Maker Gear M2, which I've got running behind me, has the same feature. I don't know if the version that's out on Thingiverse will work with my all aluminum extruder, but if it does, or if I can retrofit it, I think I'm going to do the same thing. The only thing, if I were to complain about my Maker Gear, is that it uses that interesting seesaw adjustment system, and you really have to wrap your head around it because you're literally adjusting the opposite endpoints when you're calibrating. So it's not like the 4-point systems that a lot of the Cartesian-based printers work with. So if that's really my only complaint. So what I've done with my Simplified 3D is I've created my own pattern so that it works out. It's like I go in about 20 millimeters into the bed, but I look at like 8 different points because I found that because of the seesaw action that you actually may have your corners centered properly, but your middle might not be calibrated properly. And so what I have found is you want to calibrate your middle or the center location using the if you look behind me, there is a set screw that allows you to adjust your bed. So that's what I calibrate first. And then I go through and use the seesaw to calibrate my edges. And that's not something they provide in the simplified 3D. So, but they do allow you to set up your own manual points, which I really like a lot. But yeah, I have to get that dialer because, you know, sliding, I don't use paper. I use, if you notice there, I've got a 0.1 and a 0.01 feeler gauge that I use to make my adjustments with. But I do like that idea because then you don't have to concern about sliding. You can just read the gauge itself. So like your tip there. Okay, I want to jump back real quick to something that I missed. So I apologize for this, but if you look behind me, this is the merge. And the reason I'm bringing this up, not because of its funny purple color, but if you remember, we had Stutzi's on, and they used a foam-based machine. So this is another company that's using something like memory foam, a high-density foam, to create a very soft, pliable. One of the complaints that I have with these plastics is they don't really conform very well to your face. So they may have a unique idea here. The only thing is this particular item, do they have the price here? It's like $139, so it's a little pricey, but I like the idea that that it's made out of a kind of a hard foam so that it conforms to your face better for a more comfortable, and then, you know, you slide your phone into it. So this is something that I forgot under our VR section. So I will end on that. And now we have our projects to talk about. Chris, why don't you go right into your project? You kind of talked about already with the dial indicator.
Sure.
And then
Yeah, so you can head on over. This was on Thingiverse. Here's the actual dial indicator mount. This is for the TAS 5. I also am getting ready for... and this will be another product of the week, but I'll talk about it next week in the projects of the week. I've got a TAS 5 head for my TAS 4.
Wow.
So I'm going to be doing an upgrade. So that's one of the reasons that I want to use this nice...
What's the significance of the TAS 5 head?
So the TAS 5 head is all metal hot end. So the TAS 4 and before had a Buddha nozzle. So you were relegated to 240 or below, or 250 and below. This all metal hot end not only is it's a hexagon nozzle, but it also has a little upgrade channel. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but there's a little right about here, that little hole right there. Later on, I'll be able to upgrade this head and add bed leveling washers to my TAS. And so when this hot end here makes contact with the four corners, it'll automatically set absolute 0 and level my bed every single print, every single time, like the TAS Mini does, or like the Little Spot Mini does, which is really nifty feature. And the Little Spot Mini is just very consistent. It can just print, and you never have to calibrate it ever. Whereas the TAS 4, I can print, but then after every few prints or so, especially bigger ones, or if I'm wrenching on the bed at all to get a part off, it requires me to recalibrate. So this will hopefully take care of some of those issues.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you, and I'm going to jump right into mine. As I said, my project of the week was doing this little, this little 3D benchy thing that I have behind me here. If you look at it, this is the final print that was on the bed itself. And as you said, again, we talked about the bed and the way that it's set up on the Maker Gear M2. And yes, I try to use very carefully. If you remember, I gave you one of these devices that I work with as well. And that's a little tiny spatula, but it's very thin. In fact, it's almost razor edge thin. In fact, I've cut myself with it. So I use that and I slowly get it underneath there. And it's not a matter of prying it off. It's more of breaking that seal. And that has really helped in minimizing the pressure that I apply on the bed, because like you said, the more pressure you apply to it, the more you're going to knock it out of alignment, and then you got to repeat it. And like I say, with the Maker Gear, it's a little bit of a chore. But this is the final print, and like I said, if I drop back to my camera, where's my camera? Oh, I've already closed down my camera. Here we go. Actually, I'll just I'll put it in front of me. So here you go. You can see it.
There it is finished.
As I said, yep, there it is finished. I like to coat my things with a little bit of paint because, after you sand them a little bit, especially with PLA, it does kind of tarnish the finish. So I then put on either a flat black if I'm using black or whatever the color is, and that kind of improves it. It doesn't really fill in the edges, but we have, we've talked about it before. There is materials out there, coatings that you can put on that does a better job of that. So that was my project. The other project is I've been doing some iOS coding. I will have for next show a working version of the iOS app that will work with the 4i system for higher resolution. And I've done some unique things, especially with the tablet. So everything is at your thumb level. So you never have to extend your hand over the other. So everything is within the control. So if you hold your tablet like this, you got your thumbs here. So all of my controls are down here. And one of them is I've created a new focusing system because the newest version of the occipital product will use a higher resolution texture. So I'll be able to focus directly on that. And then the other thing is I will also be able to adjust on the fly the the volume resolution, which gives you more, voxels or faces than what you have been in the past been able to receive. And you can vary this. You can either use lower amount for faster speeds or more. And even though you'd have, the caveat there is that it's a slower scan process, but you get a denser mesh, just like you can in Scanet. But you'll have that flexibility. So again, next week, I'll be showing that off, and then I'll be pushing it up into the cloud, the iTunes store, so that people can download it. So that's coming soon. So that's the main projects that I've been working with, And then I wanted to talk about this little slide a little bit, and I'll jump right to it. Did you see this? Did I send this to you, Chris?
I read this.
Brad Hill sent me a...
Looks like we're dropping out a little bit, but we're talking about the Carbon 3D, and it's showing a resolution 1 nanometer, 1 micrometer, and then and that's the layer thickness. It's 100 times the speed they're claiming. But the staggering part is, I don't know where this slide came from, but they're claiming $90,000 for this little SLA process printer, which seems like kind of a lot to me. So real interested to see where the actual price comes in at. We'll have to see. It says it's starting shipping in March of 2015, which that can't be right because March is already passed, and I don't think the Carbon 3D is shipping already. It still is a pretty novel approach to SLA, as it has some sort of permeable oxygen membrane that allows to speed the process because you don't have that peel process that most SLA printers have. Are you there, Mike?
Can you hear me? I'm back.
Yeah, thanks. So so $90,000. That seems like a lot.
Yeah, it does seem like a lot. It's something that's not in my budget, and so I'm back now. I apologize for dropping out again. It appears that hopefully I use two-step validation, as I mentioned before, validation or verification for Google, and it just shuts me down right in the middle of something. So I'll need to complain to Google about that. So I apologize.
So I don't know how accurate this slide can be. I mean, it starts shipping March 2015. Well, March is come and gone, and I don't think Carbon 3D is anywhere near ship ready yet. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I don't know where he got it from. As I said, it's unconfirmed. However, I wanted to start some talk on it. Maybe we'll get some information out there. But if it is 90,000, I started thinking, why not? This is the fastest printer. It has, if 1 micron is exactly what it can actually produce, what else can do this? I mean, don't know, but obviously it's not something. And I looked into some of these other printers, and they're close to this price range.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, on that, who knows what will happen, but I saw this and I thought I'd talk about it. The other thing is I had Steve. I wanted to come on, but he was busy, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what Steve had wrote to me. He has been working with Creation Workshop to work with a few groups to add support for SLS. So if you've been using Creation Workshop, I think he's alluded to this in the past, but he actually is working with them with the E1701 controller card. So there is some processing going on, so people are doing that using color inkjet powder printing. That's interesting. So hopefully we can get him on to talk more about that process and what
he also mentions that he's looking for a 3D C# programmer.
Yep.
So any of our listeners out there that have experience in the C#, you can get in touch with Steve over at envisionlabs.net.
Yeah, and he also has a comment about what he thinks the buzz is this Carbon 3D uses a Teflon AF. Did you ever hear that? What is the AF stand
Yeah,
for?
that's what they've been talking about in the forums. Is some sort of Teflon permeable membrane. And I don't know. There's speculation. You can head over to buildyourownslaforums.com and check out the forum discussion on the Carbon 3D. Obviously, there's people out there speculating on how they're doing it, and I'm sure it's only a matter of time before the cat's out of the bag and before the hackers are hard at work at home trying to make their SLA printers meet up with the Carbon 3D.
Yep. Well, it's been exciting. Obviously, it's added a new, what do you want to call it, objective that a lot of people are trying to reach now, and so it's just good for the industry. Okay, so on to the next item, which I think has to do with the Print Whisperer. So, tell us what it's all about.
Today, super simple.
Crafting.
Print a raft. Raft it up, boys, girls. So a raft accomplishes essentially at least 3 tasks that I know of. I print a raft on my prints a lot, especially if I'm going to start a part with small features. So if I'm building a part that has small features on the bottom and it's going up. So number 1, it adds travel time to the part. So it allows the smaller portions to uniformly cool. So a lot of times you'll print, you've heard the term sacrificial tower, sacrificial being, that it'll print it'll print a part of the part and it'll go off and we'll kind of print another sacrificial tower to let that printed portion cool. So you can come back and you can print on top of it without having it. Sometimes it'll get all gunked up and it'll start to move, and you get really nasty parts that way. So the raft helps provide uniform cooling because it adds travel time to each layer, especially in the beginning. So that can be helpful. Number 2, probably the most important, is it makes it so that it adheres to the bed better. So the raft helps your whole part adhere to the bed and kind of keeps it in place, which is really nice. And number 3, it wipes and starts the flow of filament before the model contours are laid, and it makes the part come out a little bit cleaner. So I have a lot of luck if I'm having trouble with a part, especially that starts with thin features on the bottom. Even if you try to print with support material, you might not the support material might not necessarily adhere to the bed that well. So if you add a raft, the support material will actually go onto the raft. It'll have a lot better layer adhesion, and the raft just helps a lot. But one note that I will tell you, because I almost cut my finger off a couple times this week. Same finger. One, I took the X-Acto to the side of my index finger on my left hand, and then later on in the week, chopped the tip of my index finger off. So be careful, boys and girls. Safety is a priority. Wear gloves, especially if you're doing support removal of any kind. You're down there prying a knife. Probably wear safety glasses, because if you break a blade, especially an X-Acto blade, it could kick back up and hit you in the eye or something. You don't want that. So wear safety goggles. There's no downside, right? You're not, it's not a, it doesn't harbor you in any way to wear safety gear. So put some gloves on if you're working. It really a pair of nice leather gloves or something. Put them on your hands and put some safety glasses on before you start working the support material, because it'll just make your life easier and you don't have to chop your finger off like I did. So.
Yep. Well, my father cut off the tip of his pinky with a bandsaw. So.
Yikes. Yeah, luckily I was able to, kind of catch it in time, put some frankincense on it, and wrapped it up with a bandage, and luckily it's already healed up and I'm not missing a tip and it didn't fall off or anything weird like that. So sorry if I'm grossing out our listeners, but
well, we talk about medical things. Well, you could have always 3D printed a tip,
Oh yeah. No, I want my finger.
Appendages.
The point is wear gloves, wear safety glasses. You want your eyes, you want your fingers.
Totally agree with you. And they do make stylish ones if that's an issue, but
yeah, I really like those mechanics gloves. Those are my favorite. The mechanics gloves
with the rubber tips.
Yeah, just like are really nice and made for when you're wrenching on your car or whatever. They're just nice. I wear them for everything.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Print Whisperer. So I was going to talk about my digital toolbox, the Autodesk Fusion 360, and sadly, it didn't upgrade, or it hasn't upgraded, and I don't want to go through the process of upgrading. So I'll leave that for next week, but just to let you know, if you look back at the images that I showed here, this is now possible in Fusion 360 Ultimate. And if you remember, I think the subscription, is very reasonable. And it uses a photon-based renderer both on your machine, or you can throw them up into the cloud. Lighting isn't very sophisticated. It uses the material library that you have in Fusion 360 for coloring and material. But as you can see in the image I have here, it does a pretty good job of creating fairly realistic objects.
That's a damn nice render for being cloud-based. I mean, for being cloud software, that's great.
Well, actually, cloud software can be really amazing.
Right. Yeah. Nowadays, it's
well, the cool thing is
a long way.
That for your subscription, it's built in, and normally to get this kind of quality, I mean, there are some open source applications, but the ones that we've looked at can be thousands of dollars. And the fact that it's photon based, you have 3 different versions. The photon takes the longest, but it provides the most accurate. It provides, as you can see in the image, reflection as well as shadowing. And depending on how long you want to wait, like most photon-based imaging, will provide you even more quality. And then you can scale this up depending on the size of your monitor image. This was, I think, originally 2000 by 1200. So fairly high scale imaging that you can get out of it. In the cloud, you can go even higher than that. I've noticed, though, their cloud system uses a credit system. And I think with either my ultimate subscription, it's like 100. So I don't know what happens when I run out of them. You can also do pano tables in the cloud. So it will render a whole bunch of series of shots. So you can create a turntable style render. It will also do video as well. So some neat little features there. So like I said, I'll talk about that more next week when I have my Autodesk Fusion 360 upgraded to support it on this machine that I'm working on right now. Okay, well, I'm going to go right into my next item. And for our audience, even though it is an anatomically correct part of the body, I didn't think I would have it in the show notes as such. But if you remember this particular topic.
Oh, I remember quite vividly, Mike.
Okay. But essentially, she's been in court identifying that, the Japanese are really wanting to slam her with the obscene rulings that they have, but she feels that this is really an issue against women, that you can't express yourself artistically and freedom of expression. So she's really been fighting it. But it was kind of funny, and I think we talked about this
her.
before.
I mean, that's amazing.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, just to go out on a limb like that.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, she probably has a little bit of a personality of creating a. I'm wanting to find it here, but her name that she's given herself is Bad Girl. So that should tell you something right there. That she obviously enjoys kind of going against the system, and you know,
And
here's
kayaking in her own.
yeah, okay, but she has, you know, obviously gotten world attention for this, and you know, it is an issue, and you know, we're not going to get into some huge politics, but you know, I really think that there's some issues, not only in this kind of all over about, you know, where women are, and you know, kind of, you know, you almost made the comment boys and then added girls. You know, we have lived in a technically dominant male society, and I really like it that 3D printing is allowed everybody to be involved with it. And I'm really hoping Monica was supposed to be with us today. She's not going to be coming on until May, but she's going to be a new addition to our 3D in medicine. She's working with me for this thing that we're going to be doing up around the same time as the Maker. It's called the MedX Maker Group, and they're essentially people who are using medical in kind of in a maker environment. So that should be pretty cool. So upcoming events, I wanted to talk about this a little bit, but I'll do it by showing my tweets, because you can't just say 3D print show, because it actually consists of a lot of different shows. You know, obviously we've done the 3D printing, that's there right now, but there's a 3D in design, 3D in fashion. You know, they call it the 3D Print Week in New York. So it's a collection of shows. And, you know, this one a lot of people have tweeted about. This was done in SLA print. Was it an SLA? No, I'm sorry. It was a color print. And I don't know how many sections it consists of, but this is a 3D print using sandstone. So, you know, if you go through all the tweets, you know, Shapewaves was there. A lot of the different people that we've talked to in the past have been there. Remember Fargo 3D? They're there. They came all the way from Minnesota. No, North Dakota. Sorry. So again, here's a little image from Lance Ulanoff. But if you hashtag 3D, what is it called? 3D print show, you can find everything that's out there on Twitter. Lots of different things, a lot of different art. It's always been neat with this particular series of shows. They really kind of focus on the art portion of it. So that's going on this week. I think it ends the end of this weekend. That's going on. And then obviously you can always go out to our show notes for other things in our 3D conference. And then finally, I'm going to end the show on a positive. I'm out on the set of, you know, a movie that's coming out around Christmas. I don't know. Maybe you guys have heard of it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna board my little craft. I'm running it for this weekend. I'm going to take a few parsecs. How was that? And kind of head out to another galaxy on another side of the world. But on that note, hopefully they don't ban us. I thought I'd end it with this little clip here.
The force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it. My sister has it. You have that power too.
For those not watching, Mike's crying right now. He's like, have you seen the Matthew McConaughey watches this trailer? That looks like it's going to be a good time. I'm going to have to IMAX 3D.
Chewie. We're home.
Yep.
Chewy, we're home. Love it.
We're home. Yeah.
Definitely going to have to go see that.
Obviously, that's coming. One of the things that we're going to be doing over the next few months is looking figures. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be out there recreating these things in 3D. So I'm going to be scouring the web for StarWars.com, or what do you want to call it? Paraphernalia, objects, things that people are creating. There are going to be new costumes. In fact, I saw somewhere that somebody has a, I guess, kind of like a warehouse of a lot of different things created from movies and so forth. Many of these 3D printed. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. So I'm going to hop back into my Millennium Falcon, and I'm going to go to another universe. No, galaxy, far, far away. All right, Chris.
Awesome.
This is the end of our show.
Well, thanks to our listeners. Thanks to everybody contributing content and 3dprint.com, 3ders.com, Russia Today. A lot of great news items out there, and let's just keep up. Let's just keep this little steamboat. Let's keep this little steamboat going.
Actually, here we go.
There she is.
But on that note, I just wanted to say, hey, if you like our show, subscribe. That's really important to us. We're not doing anything with it yet. We're not monetizing this. We're not putting those little stupid commercials that everybody has. But, maybe you can just bring your steamship.
But we are going to add a Bitcoin address for you to donate to if you want. If you can, we're going to have a little change tip address for you to tip us with your, extra skrill, extra Bitcoin. If you want to tip us and spread the Bitcoin love, because that's what it's all about, right? And get that Bitcoin boat running.
So when will you do that, Chris?
We can have an address. I can give you an address right now.
Okay. So we'll put it in the show notes. So yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, any little bit helps. Doesn't take a lot to run this show, but if you're wanting to help us, most importantly, just subscribe. The more subscribers, the more attention we're getting, and who knows, maybe ABC, NBC, one of those will pick us up and we'll become the new 3D print show. No, Chris is saying no.
We're independent. Let's keep it independent.
That's right. We'll keep it.
We cover what we want and what the listeners want. We don't cover what executives want.
Exactly. Okay. Well, on that note, sign us off, Chris.
All right. Thanks, and we'll see you next week on All Things 3D.
Bye.